How can we fix Monday Night Raw and the rest of the WWE product? My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti, and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble, where tonight we are talking about basically the state of the union and the world wrestling entertainment. And we all know that there are some things that are working, but there's obviously some things that are not working, mainly everything that's happening on Monday Night Raw, especially what happened last Monday, which could have been the worst Raw of this year, maybe even the worst Raw ever. So before we get to our conversation, make sure you hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. We're trying to get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers before the Royal Rumble. So Ralph, throughout the night, Monday night, we were texting each other.
Yeah.
Mainly negative things about how bad Raw was. It was bad.
Yeah, this and you know, like you kind of said before, this could have been the worst Monday Night Raw episode of all time. This was beyond bad. This was piss poor. You know, there are a number of things that you can kind of look at and point to as to why this was bad. But at the end of the day, I mean, for me, this was unwatchable. I remember texting you at one point about halfway through, and I was like, I just can't watch this anymore.
Yep, and I've seen that by so many people. I was tweeting throughout the night on our Twitter at SCPB Podcast, and just seeing everybody just say the same thing. And it was just a collective that most people are just irritated by the fact that we're seeing the same matches over and over and over again. How many times do we have to see Seth Rollins versus Dolph Ziggler? Now, granted, they do put on great matches.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. But there's just, you've seen it so many times. It's like, why care?
Yeah. And this is kind of it's tough because WWE is almost too consistent in some aspects and then not consistent enough. Now, what I mean by that is, you know, like you just said, Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins, they're capable of having a great match. The match they had on Monday night, there was nothing wrong with it. In fact, it was a very good match.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we've seen that match so many times over the past several months. And on the other side of that, you've got Seth Rollins, who apparently now he's going to start doing the open challenge all over again.
Right.
And it's like, well, why all of a sudden are you deciding to do this? Why didn't he just continue to do that? Like, they're so consistent with presenting the same matches over and over, the same segments week after week. You know, you're going to get the authority figure coming out at the beginning of the show, this long drawn out, you know, segment where you got Baron Corbin and then the face comes out and another heel comes out. It's just nothing on that product feels fresh right now. Nothing is working on Monday Night Raw.
Did you happen to hear Lance Storm's podcast this week?
Lance Storm. I didn't listen to Lance Storm's, I don't think. I did listen to Taz. Taz had a really good podcast about Monday Night Raw. And
well, before we get to Taz's podcast, let me just say, with WWE, or Lance Storm's podcast, he was talking about the 50-50 booking that's happening on Raw. Basically, the face will win one week, the heel will win the next week, and then, but during the match, it's 50-50 booking inside the ring during that match. And he's saying this really hurts the product because, you know, Lance Storm is a trainer himself.
Yeah.
So one thing that he tells his students is let the babyface get the strong hand first so that, you know, by psychology, the fans want to cheer for the guy who's winning more. So make sure the babyface does that, and then the heel can do something heelish, interference, use a weapon, distract the referee, whatever it is, to draw heat. And they're not doing that anymore. Instead, what they're doing is having the heel dominate the match, and then there's the comeback, and then the heel ends up winning, and then all this other stuff. And it's bad because the fans can't get interested.
Yep.
So that's the first thing I would fix overall in WWE, but it mainly happens a lot on Raw, is this 50-50 booking to try to build matches and build cards on pay-per-views. I don't care if Balor wins one week and then Corbin wins the next week so that we have to have the payoff at a pay-per-view, because guess what? It's going to happen again and again for 3 more months. That's the problem.
Yeah. The other problem is, and this, you know, they can't really do too much about this, but they have obviously been bitten by the injury bug. So you got Kevin Owens, who is out. You got Sami Zayn, who is out. We know Roman Reigns is going to be out for an extended period of time. Braun Strowman's out. But at the very least, what this does is expose the WWE for the simple fact that they do not put enough time and emphasis on creating new stars or making people feel important to the audience.
They don't build baby faces. That's the problem.
They're terrible at building baby faces. They're even worse at establishing characters as important. You know, they will focus on their one guy or their top couple guys. You know, they focused on Braun Strowman for a little bit. Roman Reigns was going to be the guy. And now you're really left with those guys that you kind of cast aside as your mid-card, who now have to elevate themselves to fill the role as the top guys in WWE. And I'm not saying that they can't do it. They're all more than capable of doing it, but the fans don't care about them because WWE has not booked them as being characters that you should be caring about. You can't get invested in somebody if you don't know anything about them or if, they're meant to seem meaningless. You know, perfect segment. Jinder Mahal, who carried the title for I don't know how long, but he was a
170 days.
170 days as the champion over on SmackDown, came to Raw. I think he may have had an IC title run. Maybe not. I could be wrong.
No, never an IC title.
Okay, well, he hasn't been...
U.S. title.
Now, okay. I don't know if he should have been a guy that should have ever been a world champion. We all know why they did it. But as he came to Monday Night Raw, they've done nothing to establish him as a character that you should care about. In fact, he's pretty much been a jobber, right?
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. And then you have him now in a match with No Way Jose, and it's just like, what am I watching? Like, I don't care if it's a 5-minute match. Now you've got this guy, No Way Jose, who's essentially, Adam Rose Part 2.
Well, it's actually funny because I'm watching this with my wife, and she's not a fan of WWE. She used to watch during the Attitude Era, but clearly she thinks it's Lifetime for men. That's what she calls it.
Yeah.
In a way it is, in a way it's not, but that's a different discussion. But anyway, No Way Jose comes out. And I'm like, oh my God, they're bringing out No Way Jose. When was the last time this guy was on TV?
Exactly.
You know what her response was? Is that the guy with the bunnies?
Exactly. Because it's the same thing. Like, they go to the well one too many times. I mean, there's so much blame to go around on this episode of Monday Night Raw. It was terrible. I texted you at one point. I said, I can't watch this. I ended up watching The Walking Dead. I went back to it and I said, I'm going to fast forward until I see something that looks like it could be meaningful. I stopped for 2 seconds on the Ronda Rousey segment, and started to fast forward again. Before I knew it, the show was over.
Yeah, the Nia Jax promo previously to when prior to when Ronda Rousey came out.
Oh my God.
I mean, yes, she's trying to draw heat, and for the most part, she's doing a good job at it. But this promo sucked.
It was terrible.
This was maybe the worst promo I've heard all year. It was bad. It was long. It was boring. It wasn't getting anywhere. And even Tamina's staring at Nia like, can we get to the point here? Why are you out here?
Right.
Build this match up. Get to the cue to when Ronda gets here. It was like, and you could even hear it in the crowd or see it in the crowd because you could see fans playing with their phones and being so disinterested, and yet everyone on Twitter is tweeting how bad she is, and that's creating the heat.
Yep.
So the match and the build is there for Ronda versus Nia, but at the same time, this could be Nia Jax's free fall to mediocrity and irrelevancy.
The other thing I wanted to comment on is, we get a lot of people will give Brock Lesnar heat for being essentially this part-time champion who's not there every week, and essentially, I think what's happened with Ronda Rousey is she doesn't feel special, almost because she is there every week. I think you need to find the balance between how long you actually keep somebody on television versus off television.
Yeah.
To me, she's just another character now. She doesn't feel special. I mean, she's somebody who, when you watch, obviously, she's going to have a good match and you're going to be entertained. But, when she's on Monday Night Raw now, it just feels like another segment.
I know you have mentioned that you don't like the smiling thing. I don't really have that big of an issue with it.
Oh, my God.
And we talked about that on our first episode of our podcast. I don't really care that she's smiling because it humanizes her in a way. And yes, when she gets down to it, she is in game mode. But when she's going to the ring and she's smiling, this is the first time where I was like, the smiling makes no sense.
Not even that, but you go back to the episode following Survivor Series after she got beat down by Charlotte Flair. She comes out, she's smiling, she's waving. You just got beat with a kendo stick.
Yeah.
Like, you just got your ass kicked and you're coming out smiling and waving. Like, we just need more of the badass Ronda Rousey sometimes.
Yeah.
I have no problem with her coming out smiling, shaking hands with fans. That's all good and great, but she needs to know when to turn that on and when to turn that off. This would have been a better segment had she come out with the game face on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to approach this person who's talking crap about you, but you're taking time out of the walk to the ring to shake hands and smile and wave, and could have done without that. But
Yeah, but overall, we know the product right now is at a real low, maybe even an all-time low. The ratings are dropping. We all know that.
yeah.
The injuries don't help. So how do we fix Raw?
Well, it's not going to be an overnight thing, and it's going to be very difficult, I think, because they, like I said before, they have not put enough time in investing in creating new stars from the guys that are kind of in the middle of the pack. So first of all, you have to put more time into actually establishing these guys as somebody that the fans should care about. A couple call-ups from NXT couldn't hurt. A little less Lucha House Party on Monday Night Raw. A little less Jinder Mahal.
Oh, you just brought up something that really irritated me.
Was this
The Lucha House Party segment. Really,
Terrible.
really irritated me. Here's why it irritated me, and it irritated a lot of people that I was talking to on Twitter. The Revival are the heels in this story. They're the bad guys. And yet the story that they're telling is as if they're the faces and Lucha House Party are the heels.
Makes no sense.
Makes absolutely no sense. So the Revival come out and they're cutting a promo on how Lucha House Party are changing rules and they could do whatever they want to win, and the Revival aren't prepared for it. And yet they come into the ring and the announcer announces that it's Lucha House Party rules, which was the exact same thing that happened the week before. And Lucha House Party wins because they're not tagging in. They're just going in whenever, and they're going 3-on-1. And It was very heelish, but yet they're the baby faces. How? How are they the baby faces? I don't understand that whatsoever.
I don't understand it. And you know, the Revival, that's another perfect example of them not doing enough to establish guys or teams as...
How about the tag team division in general?
Yeah.
Outside of AOP, who the hell has been built as a legitimate tag team that can actually compete with the AOP? Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, who had a tag team championship match on this Raw, that's not it. And I'm sorry, the AOP is far more talented than Drake Maverick peeing on a robe.
I agree. That was maybe the lowest segment. And the one thing that Taz said was, you've put all this time over all these years to establish WWE as this, you know, it's a publicly traded company.
Yes.
You have people investing millions of dollars. This is Taz's opinion, not mine. And you have a guy going on television pissing on a robe.
Right.
Like, what? Who wrote this? Where did this come from?
What's sad is the producers that are leading these shows all have wrestling experience. You're talking about guys like Michael P.S. Hayes. You're talking about guys like Mike Rotunda or Erwin R. Shyster, Arn Anderson. These are legendary wrestlers. And this is what they're coming up with. And this writing team, that they can grab the best of the best writing team and creative staff, and they make the creative part a joke.
Terrible.
They're just writers. They just go, let's draw out of a hat and go, okay, Drake Maverick. It's like they're playing Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
And it's terrible.
It seems like everything you look at, every wrestler you bring up, it just points to another poor segment on Raw. I mean, the Dean Ambrose thing.
Oh, that was cringeworthy.
My God. What are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? How does that further advance the storyline? Some bogus doctor, he's giving him shots, and Dean Ambrose did fine. I mean, Dean Ambrose is good at acting. He's a good
promo. He's a good promo, and the promo itself was good. It's just that the content and the story behind the promo was just stupid.
It's just beyond ridiculous.
This is what his his heel turn has come out to be that I don't want to come to towns because I'm afraid to get dysentery. Really?
Garbage.
Like, this should be the main event story on Raw, and it's dysentery jokes. And it's, I don't want to get sick. Is this kind of an undertone to Roman Reigns getting leukemia, and he doesn't want to catch leukemia? Like, is that what we're going to go towards?
I don't know. I know it was bad. And then, my God, as if we didn't have enough heel authority figures, here comes Alexa Bliss. Now she's the authority figure over the women's division.
The only bright spot, I think, of this Raw is that, though.
Well, she plays the part well.
She plays the part well, and I think what they could do with her, if she ends up being like a full-time women's GM or whatever, they could really do something really well with her. So they could, but the question is, will they? And from what we're seeing recently, that's going to be a big no. What I would do to fix Raw, here's the first thing, and I've been saying this ever since the brand split even happened. We need to stop having belts on one show and belts on another show. You need to have a WWE champion that goes on both shows. You need to have tag team champions that go on both shows. A women's champion that goes on both shows. Now, with Fox taking SmackDown, we know the brand split is still going to happen, or at least what the news is saying. But I think having this could happen because the women's division split up. While it's really strong right now, it's not the strongest it could be.
Right.
The tag team division is an absolute joke on both shows. And there's really only 3 tag teams that are worth talking about, and they're all on one show. Yep. Well, I was originally say put the tag teams on SmackDown and the women on Raw, but now with SmackDown going to Fox, I would flip that. The women need to be on SmackDown, and the tag teams need to go on Raw. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is I would get rid of the 3-man commentary crews. Get rid of them entirely because one of them ends up playing third wheel and they don't sound organic and they're just not good. You know, Byron Saxton stinks. He's not good. Tom Phillips, he's okay, but sort of annoying. He's just a Michael Cole 2.0 in my regards. And Corey Graves does not need to be on both shows. What I would do is put Nigel McGuinness on one of those shows. I put Corey Graves on the other, Mauro Ranallis, and until he retires, Michael Cole on one of the shows. That's it. Keep those 4, and that is it.
Yep.
As far as NXT, obviously these guys need to get called up soon, but the problem is the roster's so bloated congested, and no one is doing anything that you're going to have to cut ties with people. You're going to have to say goodbye to Apollo Crews, say goodbye to Mojo Rawley, say goodbye to No Way Jose. These guys aren't doing anything, and they're not going to do anything. Get rid of them. You have guys like EC3, Lars Sullivan, Aleister Black, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, who can instantly become an upper mid-card main event talent on whatever show they go on. Get rid of the trash. You don't even need to do a shakeup. Don't do a shakeup. Just have an NXT draft.
Right.
You know, I would put Lars Sullivan on SmackDown. They need more heels. I bring Aleister Black on Raw. They need more faces, and he would be a great anti-establishment babyface right now for the Corbin, Lashley, McIntyre trio there.
It's not just as simple as bringing the guys up. You have to use them correctly.
Right.
I think that's been the biggest issue with WWE is they call these guys up. I say this all the time. Almas, right? He's a great wrestler, great in-ring performer, but he's on SmackDown 1 week. He's off for 2 weeks. He's back for 2 weeks. He's off the next 3. They are so inconsistent with their storylines and their characters.
Or Sanity.
I mean, another perfect example, Sanity. Something as subtle as Mojo Rawley. Like, 1 week they're investing time into getting him over. Now, mind you, I don't think he's a guy that would actually do anything on the show. But I don't know. Maybe something clicks and people get behind him. It didn't work. But the part of the reason that didn't work was he's on 1 week. He's off the next 2. They're so inconsistent that you can't actually care about any of it.
And it's sad because Raw is 3 hours long, and yet there are segments where one guy is on multiple times. Like
Baron Corbin.
During the summer, I remember you pointing out there was like 6 segments that involved Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
6 segments on a 3-hour show.
Yep.
He
It's
was
not
on.
needed.
That's basically an entire hour dedicated to Roman Reigns.
Yep.
Now I get it. He's a top baby face, and I get maybe it's just the way television is now, and people's attention spans are just they're not staying for all 3 hours, as we saw in the ratings drop from hour 2 to hour 3. But why aren't they doing that with Ronda Rousey? Why isn't Ronda Rousey on 6 segments a show? Why isn't Becky Lynch on 6 segments a show?
You go back to let's use the New Age Outlaws as an example. When they got over, they weren't on television. They were on the show consistently throughout. Like, they didn't have 6 segments dedicated to getting the New Age Outlaws over. In fact, the thing that got them over was, or even the Dudleys, right? You look at them. They came out, they put Terry Funk and Mick Foley in a dumpster, and they pushed off the stage. That was a 5-minute thing that got them a ton of heat and got them over. The Dudley Boys, what did they do? Maybe they had a match, but what got them over was they were powerbombing women through tables. Now, I'm not advocating for powerbombing women through tables in 2018, but it just goes to show you, like, they don't have to have these long, drawn-out 30-minute matches to get over. You can position these people and put them in segments to make them feel special. But that can't happen if Baron Corbin and his group of cronies and Leo Rush are dominating upwards of an hour of television.
Right. Our last episode that we were talking about what makes a great match, I brought up, characters.
Yep.
And what gets them over. Braun Strowman flipping the ambulance when Roman Reigns is in it the night after WrestleMania.
Yep.
Like, he's become the biggest babyface since that moment. That's all it takes. But yet WWE wants to please the mainstream audience, but yet they're trying to please the IWC at the same time, and you can't. You can't do that. It's either one or the other.
It doesn't help that the fact that they continuously book their face characters as just complete nerds. There's the lack of better term, absolute geeks like
morons.
Seth Rollins coming out every week, feeding into the crowd. What's up, Iowa? Like, all right, I get it, the cheap pop, but come on, man, give me something deeper, a little more meaningful. It's just bad. But all that being said, Raw's terrible, but SmackDown was good.
SmackDown was... It's funny. In 24 hours, we went from possibly the worst Raw
to a very
to
good
the
SmackDown
possibly very best SmackDown
in recent times.
It's good. In at least the year. And what's great about this SmackDown is it set up... The entire show set up different paths to everything. There wasn't really a repeat of something. They're planting seeds for new matches going into TLC. Fresh feuds. We got Nakamura and Rusev. We got Samoa Joe and Jeff Hardy.
Yep.
Rey Mysterio and Randy Orton. The triple threat match, TLC Women's Championship match, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Asuka, which a lot of people, and this is where people are like, oh, WWE doesn't listen to their fans. You think they're listening to their fans now when they put Asuka in this match?
Yeah, thankfully. She deserves to be in that position. I've been very critical of the way she's been positioned up until this point, but it's good to see her elevated back into that spot where she belongs there.
Right.
Maybe there's a little bit of a language barrier. You're not going to get a great promo from her because she doesn't speak fluent English. That's okay. I mean, you can get her a mouthpiece at some point.
And what's great about the outcome of this match, whether it is Charlotte that ends up winning, Becky that ends up winning, or Asuka that ends up winning at TLC, you could do so much with these three on their path to WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
In fact, our next 3 episodes are going to be dedicated to this. I'm playing Booker, man, and I'm going to be booking how I would book the road to WrestleMania as if each one of them won the TLC match. We're starting with Asuka, then we're going Wednesday is going to be Charlotte, and then Friday is going to be Becky Lynch. And, you can have it set up no matter what. You're setting it up for, this is going to be the main event at TLC to help set this up for the main event at Royal Rumble, which should be the Women's Royal Rumble.
Right.
And then eventually the main event of WrestleMania, which should be either Charlotte versus Ronda versus Becky, a triple threat match, or even a fatal 4-way.
Right.
You could do so much with this.
Yeah.
So
the other thing I would probably point out from the Women's Battle Royal was so Sonya Deville, I actually think she could be really good.
Yeah, she
eventually
looked
down the
really,
road.
and Mandy Rose looked good too.
Yeah, so they're at least they're trying with those people. We'll see what happens.
And the opening segment of SmackDown was really good too, because you're establishing all these different female wrestlers in one segment that, hey, Naomi, Carmella, and Asuka were in the title picture at one point.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Iconics that could still be relevant. Mandy Rose is slowly climbing up the ladder of relevancy in the women's division, and yet you still have the popularity and the intrigue of Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair.
Absolutely.
And Becky Lynch, like, she is what she calls herself. She is the man, and whatever she does, people just eat her up.
Yep.
They love her.
Yep.
Even ESPN just put their power rankings up or whatever. She's number one. The first time a female ever topped the power rankings. If WWE does not run with this, and it looks like they are, but they'd be making a huge mistake if they're...
she should definitely carry the belt until WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I don't want to see them take the belt off her. Let her do her thing. It's working. People are behind her. The gimmick is starting to click.
But let's say she does lose at TLC.
Right.
Let's say Asuka wins. Would it be better for Becky Lynch, after she loses the title, goes into the Royal Rumble, wins it, and then challenges either Asuka or most likely would be Ronda at WrestleMania, and that could set up your WrestleMania main event.
That'll work too.
See, here's the thing. You have that match, and you have Nia versus Ronda Rousey. I have a feeling one of those two matches is going to end with a title change. It could be that Asuka or Charlotte Flair win at TLC, or it could be Nia that wins against Ronda and give Ronda her first loss. Either way, you could still set up Ronda versus Becky because you have the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. It's Jekyll and Hyde right now between the WWE product. Raw is at an all-time low. SmackDown's at an all-time high. So what do you do? How are they just so different?
I think the biggest difference between Raw and SmackDown is with SmackDown, like you said, you're getting fresh segments, you're getting fresh feuds. Raw, it's just stale. You know, it's the same feud, it's the same match. It's Elias and Lashley, it's Baron Corbin and Finn Balor. It's been the same thing for months. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to end.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I watched SmackDown and I'm pleasantly surprised because, you know, you got the whole thing with Becky Lynch and Charlotte, which we talked about. Now you got Asuka involved in that. The Miz, even though I don't necessarily agree with the way looks like they're going to be booking him, more of the chicken shit heel, they still found a little subtle way to get him not winning the tournament for Best in the World. You know, him having that little conversation with Shane McMahon over the trophy there, it still got hit. It still worked.
Yeah.
You know, so kudos to them for that.
Do you think, and a lot of people say this, but Vince puts more effort into Raw than he does SmackDown, and that's why Raw kind of lacks where SmackDown doesn't, because he's not putting much say in SmackDown? Like, there's more freedom on SmackDown, it seems like.
I don't know all the politics that go into it, but it just seems like a better product right now. I mean, you look at AJ Styles. He came out. He had a good promo. Samoa Joe. Awesome promo.
Yeah.
Now I'm excited to see what happens with Samoa Joe and Jeff Hardy. That's something that I can get into. A couple of things I want to point out about SmackDown, and I think I talked to you about these. One, and this goes back to what I was saying about WWE being so inconsistent, and it's almost like they pull things out of a hat sometimes. What was the purpose of Raw sweeping SmackDown at Survivor Series? They didn't go back to it, not once. It hasn't even been mentioned.
I think there was the mess up that SmackDown won the pre-show match, so too many people caught on to that.
Right.
So because of that, they scraped the whole thing. 2, well, it was supposed to be if they swept, Baron Corbin was going to be GM, and then Stephanie's like, no, wait a minute, you're going to wrestle Braun Strowman for your role.
Yeah.
So it's like they tiptoed their way through it and then realized this is stupid.
Yep.
And they scraped it. If anything, it could just be something that it kind of put a reset on SmackDown going, okay, we lost. We need to be a better product. And they just go out there and have a better show.
Right.
Like maybe it was purposely done that Raw was so bad and SmackDown was so good.
I don't know. Why
because
they would
of
do something like that.
Well, again, SmackDown is going to Fox. I think they want to show that Fox is getting the better product. And why not do it by having Raw be a complete crap show of something that we've already seen thousands of times, and SmackDown be a fresh, new, compelling show that no matter what happens, you're going to get entertainment and ratings.
I read somewhere, and I wish I had actually brought up the source with me. So I think I remember reading that Fox wants Ronda on SmackDown.
Oh, everyone's been saying that.
And I would love for Becky Lynch to start calling that out. That, you know, they're moving to Fox. You guys want Ronda here, but she's not as good as me, etc. That would just only help her.
Right.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to point out, too, was, you know, Rusev, who essentially, I forgot all about Rusev.
Yeah.
It seems like Rusev Day was so over, and now it's essentially non-existent.
And the storyline just ended.
Exactly. Like, that was a halfway decent storyline. It had me invested, and it just ended with him and Aiden English out of nowhere.
Yeah. 90-second squash match.
So
Aiden
strange.
English hasn't even been on TV since that match.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they bring him back. We'll see.
He might be heading to future endeavors.
I wish a couple other. I shouldn't say that, but they do need to cut quite a few individuals if they intend to bring up a lot of the NXT guys.
Now, let's wrap this up quickly, and let's do like a quick NXT draft.
Sure.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna name 8 potential NXT guys that will get called up to the main roster within 2019. Quickly, Raw or SmackDown? So we'll start with Lars Sullivan. Raw or SmackDown?
The rumor is he's going to work both shows, and I want to see him work both shows. It will feel special. He'll be the first free agent since John Cena. They're saying he's going to get a huge push right from the get-go. That's what I want to see them do.
That would be very interesting. If I had to pick one, I would say SmackDown. They need him more, I think. Aleister Black.
Oh, man. Aleister Black, Monday Night Raw.
I would say Raw as well. EC3.
SmackDown.
I say Raw. I think he'd be better off on Raw, especially with the lack of baby faces, and he is a Vince prototype, so he would definitely work, I think, better on Raw. Undisputed Era.
Undisputed Era. SmackDown.
I agree. Do a storyline with Styles and Gallows and Anderson with the Undisputed Era. That'd be awesome. Shayna Baszler.
Oh, she's got to go to Raw.
I say SmackDown.
Well, not that she has to go to Raw. It depends on what they want to do with Ronda Rousey and the 4 Horsewomen, if you believe they're actually going to go forward with that. But that would be why I say Raw.
I say SmackDown. She could set up her first feud with Charlotte Flair, then go along to Becky Lynch, and still set up the 4 Horsewomen that way. Velveteen Dream.
Seems like a SmackDown guy.
I say SmackDown as well. Ricochet.
205 Live.
Is he even under 205?
No, I'm joking. No, I could see him on Raw. They, like you said, lack of faces. He's exciting. They need something to jumpstart that show. So, Monday Night Raw.
Tommaso Ciampa.
SmackDown. Because like I said, I want to see him. I want to see him and Randy Orton have a feud.
I say Ciampa goes to Raw. I think he would be a great heel on Raw. And last but not least, Johnny Wrestling.
Monday Night Raw.
I would agree, only because that's where 205 Live goes.
Well, other interesting they could decide to do is bring back DIY. Bring them in as a tag
team. They could, and that could really help the tag team division.
Over the weekend, I don't know if it was a house show, an NXT house show for the recording. They actually had when they were on the opposing sides of the ring, where they do the super kicks. They did that, and then Ciampa and Gargano were actually faced off. Kind of like, are we going to see now a heel tag team run for them and brought up?
That'd be interesting.
Yep.
All right, well, that's going to do it here for our way to fix Monday Night Raw, the WWE product in general, and our NXT call-ups for 2019. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and also use the hashtag SCPB Podcast to let us know on Twitter at SCPB Podcast. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and review. Thank you for listening to the Squared Circle Psychobabble.